So we're going to talk about Git on a high level. Like I said, I'm going to have a video for you guys explaining Git more on a granular level and what you'll do on day-to-day. But I kind of want to introduce you to the concept of Git before I just throw you off and have you just do these steps. Who knows what Git is? G-I-T. Yes, go for it. Do you raise your hand? You raise your hand. I saw a hand. Okay, go. Okay, code repository. Why do we use it? Why not, I don't know, something else? Why is it so popular? Version control, right? Hot word on the street right now. What does that mean, version control?
It means basically if I change a piece of code and one of my classmates changes a piece of code, we don't end up deleting the same thing.
Right. So it's just a new update to the software, right? Everybody has a smartphone, right? You get a message that says, oh, there's a new iOS update. You'll usually see it's like 4.8.1. That was an awful 8. It's like 4.8.1. It's called semantic versioning. But this would be an update to the code base. Usually these little guys are patches. So small code updates, right? They maybe fixed a bug or something like that. This guy would be a minor fix, but your old code would still work. This one, big fix. Anything before is breaking. You don't need to really know that, but just know it's new updates to code, right? So the reason why Git is so important, besides versioning your software, let's say Stephanie and I were working on, I don't know, you guys did a website last class, right, where you had index.html, CSS, styling sheets, maybe a JavaScript sheet, right? Say Stephanie and I, we had this great app idea, and I won't tell you it because I don't want you to steal it, just kidding. But let's say we had this great app idea, right, for Stephanie's company. Stephanie starts building her index.html and her JS sheet and her CSS sheet. She says, hey, Renee, can you build another part of this? And I'll build the other part. Well, what do I need? I need those files, right? But she's also going to build something on that site. She may do the About menu, and I could maybe do, the Find Us page. But we want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what's most recent. Well, we could email each other back and forth the code, right? That'd be messy. Then we'd have to email changes, and what if I didn't want her change, and what would be what goes to the client? It's crazy, it's messy. So our goal, Git's goal, is to always have stable code that's ready to go to production. Production would be anyone reading it on the World Wide Web, right? So that is what Git calls your master branch. Code stable. You could push this to a website and it would be stable. There are no bugs. I'm sure you guys have all gone to websites before and you get like 404 errors or a 502 timeout, or something just doesn't work. Has anybody like gone to a website and just seen a spinner and you're like, nothing is coming? It's like it's just loading forever. That's a bug. That's not stable code, really. So the point of Git is that you always have a master branch. In your repository, it's going to be known as the GH Pages branch. That's going to be your master. So you'll see it as GH Pages. The nice thing about Git, is what they say, is if you want to develop new things, instead of just publishing it up to the internet constantly, you're going to make a copy onto your local computer, and you're going to play around here and make a branch that's an exact copy. It's kind of like a duplicate. In Microsoft Word, you can like make duplicate. That's what you're doing. You're making a duplicate of your stable code, and you're making some kind of development branch. Maybe you're going to work on a new About page. All right, so then you play around, you break it, you fix your bugs. Then what is called a pull request is you say, hey, I want to merge it into the stable code. It's ready to go. I think it's ready to go. Another person looks over your code, they test it, they make sure you don't have any bugs, And when they said, like, okay, we're good to go, they're going to push your new about page into the master branch. That way, theoretically, right, you don't get bugs in your stable code. And then this becomes a part of your stable code. Other nice thing about that is if Stephanie is making a new home page on a different branch, she doesn't have to worry about my code, right? She can make another copy and play around on her local branch. You don't have to email files to each other or anything like that. Another great thing about this, who's heard of that hot new word, the cloud? Yeah, okay. Well, Git's big thing is you don't want to have to store everything locally on your computer. What if you break your computer? What if you lose your computer? What if somebody steals it? What if so many things can happen, right? Git stores this all for you. So every time you push up to Git, Git saves it. If you even go to another computer, you can pull down your files. You don't have to keep emailing yourself stuff. You don't have to worry about saving it. Git already has that for you. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, so that is how we are going to do homeworks, checkpoints. We're going to make pull requests. So you're going to make a new branch off of JH Pages every single time. And you're going to name it whatever you want. You're going to play around, get it messy, really break stuff, get in there. Once you're ready to go, you're going to submit a pull request. Stephanie and I are going to check and make sure that it's stable code. And then once we say, okay, merge it, you'll merge it into your stable code. So as you go along, if you look at your Git history, it should keep looking like this. You have branches that you pull and then merge back in, and you copy and merge back in. And remember, when you make a branch off of something, it's always off the most recent version, right? Okay, that's very high level. Git is one of those things, if you follow my steps the exact same way every single time, don't worry about methodology right now. Just follow the steps. You will get it quick, I promise. It's the same steps every time. But Git's one of those things, if you mess up, it's okay. I can undo almost anything in Git. I've messed up in Git so many times, I can undo things, no problem. And that's how you're gonna learn how to undo things. You're gonna mess up, that's fine. The number one reason people don't understand Git is because they are so scared to even touch it. Who cares? If it's really so messed up, we'll just nuke it and download it, we'll clone it again. Not the end of the world, okay? Mess around with it. Because everybody uses it, there are so many resources, I promise. So it's fine. So follow my instructions on the video, and I'll also give you guys written out instructions. You guys should be golden. Anybody have any questions, high level, about Git? No? Okay. Also, you better just learn to love it, because no matter what job you use in tech, you're going to use it. It's industry standard, because nobody wants to email files. One person do another.
And it's better to mess up now.
Yes, mess up now, we can help you. You don't want to be doing crazy Git things your first day on the job. The only thing I will say, do not download Git desktop. If you mess up in the command line, I can fix it. If you do something in Git desktop, they have override controls that it could be gone forever. So don't do anything on Git desktop, just do it on command line. Okay. No questions about Git? Okay, sweet. I hate these erasers. Alright, let's talk JavaScript, why we're all really here. Alright, let's go through some of these key questions. For this demo, I'm going to use Repel It. You guys are going to use this a little later. Has anybody used this before? Okay. You can just play around with JavaScript here and see the outputs. Alright, so you guys have done some JavaScript in intro. Somebody give me a brief overview about what you guys have done in JavaScript in intro. Okay, if-else statements. Do you guys do any functions? A little bit of functions, okay. Primarily you guys were doing like jQuery, right? You guys remember jQuery?
Yeah, just mostly jQuery.
Okay.
Not JavaScript.
Okay, that's okay. So jQuery is the one where you have the $sign. We're not doing jQuery. Sadly, jQuery is on the way out. Like panda bears and everything we hold near and dear to our hearts, jQuery, gone. We are going to be doing vanilla JavaScript in this class, and then we're going to do React at the end. But that doesn't mean that your time was wasted knowing jQuery, because jQuery is just a JavaScript library. So everything you're doing in jQuery, you can do in vanilla JavaScript. Just keep that in mind. It's not a total waste of time, I promise. Okay, so you did some if-else statements, did a little bit of functions, targeting the DOM. Great. Okay, so let's talk data types. What are the data types? What do we got? String. Okay, shout them out. Okay, let's do primitive. Okay, number. Great. What's another one? Yeah, primitive. So strings, numbers, what else? Boolean. Okay.
Symbols.
Yeah, we're not going to do... You guys are so smart. You're getting ahead. Okay, keep that. Keep those in mind. String, number, Boolean. I guess you could count it all. What's another one? What'd you say? Undefined's good. Give me another one. Definitely not a number. Great. Oh, shit. Yeah, my bad. I thought it was plugged in. Sorry, guys. See, this is what happens when I try to be nice and record things for your classmates who are out of town. Okay, cool. Okay, anybody think of anything else? I think that's it. Number, Boolean. Okay, somebody give me an example of a string. How would I know it's a string? Yeah, sure. Right? Single or double, right? You could do hello. You'll see this a lot. Or double, you could do hello. Do I care which one you use? Nope. Just make sure they match. Clearly repel it does. Okay. Okay. What's an example of a number? We should all know this. 5, great one. Okay. Boolean, what are the two Boolean options? True or false. Okay. Null is null. Somebody tell me the difference between null and undefined.
Null is empty and undefined is something that's not defined. So basically, like if you had if you wanted to say something, if you wanted to declare something and it was blank, it'd be undefined.
Right. Yeah, correct. So if I console logged x right now, like I'm calling a variable, it's going to say x is not defined. X is technically undefined. Now, if I did, and we'll talk about const in a second, const x is equal to null, x would be set to null. So a null is like a placeholder. Just keep that in mind. Null is a placeholder. It has been defined. Undefined has not. All right. Can somebody explain to me what not a number is?
If you say something is a number and it's a string or any other type.
Right. Does anybody know how to get this not a number return? Does anybody remember that? Yeah, actually that'll work. Technically it'll look weird, but it'll just be like R5. There's a couple different ways to get that, but if you do number, and that's actually a method, and you pass it like a string of hello, hello is not a number. So the number method is trying to consume that, and it's not a number. Now, if I did a string of 7, it would come back as 7. It's a number. So it's a good test to see if something's a number or not. Okay. Before we talk about const and var, what does use strict mean? You guys have probably seen this before, right? Why do we declare this at the top? Error checking. Okay. Where? Error checking where? In the code. Specifically in your developer tools in your console. So if you guys open up developer tools on Mac, it's Control Option J or I. You also do like F12 some places. Oh man. Or you can just secondary click inspect. That brings it up. But in your console, you can basically, you'll tell your console, be strict. Check my code strictly. The nice thing about that is if you don't have use strict, you could do something like this, where you're not declaring a variable, you're just reassigning it. Without use strict, JavaScript will go, okay, well, close enough, right? Technically, they're declaring a variable. But you want to be really careful about that. You always want to declare a variable. So use strict will just keep you JavaScript-wise extremely specific, and you want that. Most of the time, you'll actually see this on your project files. If it's not already there, feel free to throw it in there. Yeah, always on a JavaScript file. Anything with JS, throw up use strict. Good code practice, put a semicolon after new lines. And most code editors or text editors will tell you that you need a semicolon. Thank you. They just told me it was undecisive. But like good code practice would be a semicolon after every line of code. All right. What's another question? Okay. So here are different data types, right? Let's talk about arguably the most important reason why data types are here. So we have the Boolean, right? True and false. Somebody explain to me in their own definition and their best way they know how, what is truthy? What? No. What's truthy? Anybody know? All right. Use your speedy little fingers, Google it, and give me a good definition for truthy.
It's when a value is considered true and a Boolean.
Okay, that's good. So basically, truthy means if you evaluate some type of data, the result of that, it would be a truthy value. If you want the nitty-gritty definition, truthy is all values that are not false. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but all values are default truthy unless they are falsy. So it's much easier to define what a falsy value is because everything else besides those are truthy. So if we're talking values that would evaluate to falsy, who knows what one would be? Yeah.
0.
0, great. So if I did if 0, right? 0 does not evaluate to true. I'd hit my else statement down here. Because 0 is not true, I'd get into my console. I'd get down here into my code. Right? 0 is not true. And this is a good way for you guys to test out if something is truthy or falsy. Stick it in an if-else statement. If it's getting into that else, it's falsy. So 0 is a good one. What's another one? Who said null? Nice. Null. Null is not a truthy value. It is not true. Okay, null. And by truthy, it means there is no value there. There's nothing there. That's why it would evaluate to falsy. Okay, 0, null. What's another one? Not a number. Perfect. We could double check that one, right? It's not true. It's not a value. Okay, what's another one? Undefined. Great. Awesome. We did the test on that. There's one more. Empty string. Perfect. An empty string is falsy. Now, oh my God, why isn't this letting me type? So if I test it like this, right, empty string, nothing in it, it's not true. Now, if you do an empty string with a space in it, that is going to be true. Does anybody know why?
Space is flexible.
Right, space is actually a value. That represents a value that your user is entering in. That is a value in terms of JavaScript. So be careful with that. So just be wary of that. If you guys ever return a empty string with a space in, it'll evaluate to true. So my falsy values are 0, null, not a number, undefined, empty string. Okay, so what are my truthy values? Everything else. 7, hello. I don't know, you could do 387. True is true. Oh, I guess we forgot the most obvious one, right? False is a falsy value, right? False does not evaluate to true. It is a falsy value. Now, I know we're using a lot of words that are very close, but very different in meaning. If I say, write an if statement that evaluates, let's say we have x, right? It's our variable, that evaluates if x is falsy, I do not mean if x is equal to false. This would say, check if x is equal to the Boolean false. Most of the time, you're never going to do that. So if you write something that's evaluating it to like an actual Boolean false, it's usually way too specific, right? Why do that? Because you could just do if x is truthy. Because if x was equal to the Boolean false, it'd be falsy. You'd fail this if statement, right? Okay, so when you're looking for truthiness, it's going to be anything that is not these values. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, great. We'll touch lightly on this if-else syntax. We'll focus way more on this next class. But has everybody seen this if-else syntax? Okay. If I were to read this if-else syntax in English, and I like to do this a lot, because your job is to break down problems into JavaScript and make sure that JavaScript would read out in English to the problem, right? So if I were to read this out in English, if x evaluates to true, then console log the string true. If x does not evaluate to a truthy value, console log not true. Okay, so when you guys are doing problems, read out things like this. Read it out in English. Make sure it makes sense. Okay, some operators we'll go over. Your logical operators. So if x, let's do like x is equal to 7. And let's say we'd have y is equal to 0. Okay, so if I wanted to write an if-else statement that would run console log true if x and y were true, how would I do that? Does anybody remember? Yep. If x and y evaluate to true, then console log true. So your if statement's going to evaluate what's ever in these parentheses, right? It doesn't have to just be one thing. You could do a ton of things. So and, right? So both of these would have to be true for me to get into this first block of code. The other option, right, I could do or. X or Y, which either one evaluates to true. If either one of those evaluates to true, then I would console log true. Yes?
Is there an order of operations for this?
Yes. Yes, there is. Great question. So in this case, with no parentheses, if X is true and it satisfies this, I actually don't even evaluate Y at all because I've already satisfied the or. Order of operations, you guys remember FOIL? First, outside, inside, last. If you wrap these, so if I would do like X or Y and like X or something like that, or if I had like Z. So what would happen here is whatever's in the parentheses would be evaluated first as one together. So this side would evaluate first, then Z would go. If you ever need to group like that, parentheses, if you ever need something to go first, you're always going to want to use parentheses, just so that's grouped. Because you don't want something like this, right? Without the parentheses, X would be evaluated, or Y, and Z. So it could mess up like how you want to group.
So is that saying X or Y and Z, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This would evaluate X or Y and Z, and that's different, right, than either X or Y and Z. It's always best to just be explicit with your parentheses than to let JavaScript guess on the order. Good question. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about const. Who's seen const before? All right, somebody tell me what that is. Oh, yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say that's telling
It's a variable. Good. And what's special about const? Yes?
That means the variable's not going to change later.
Correct. And by changed, what does that mean? It could be used by a function.
you can.
Right. It can't be reassigned, right? So if I have const x down here is 7, and down here, I'm going to take this away. And down here, I say x is equal to 8. I try to reassign. You're going to get the error. JavaScript, you've told it to be strict. X is read only. Const, constant. You're trying to reassign it, can't do that. If I did want to reassign it, instead of const, I'm going to use let. Now I could do that. Now, let's talk a little bit about why we do this. Who has heard of ES6? Okay, great. So ES5 is ECMAScript, basically 2015 or 5. It's the 5th version of JavaScript. JavaScript is just software. It's a language. It evolves. Every year there are new updates. ES6 is basically the latest stable version of JavaScript. There is ES7, but it's not completely stable yet. Not all browsers are supporting. ES6 said, no more var. No more var. It's not specific enough. Our programs don't know what variables are being reassigned and what variables are constant. So we're going to give you 2 new designators to tell us what's being reassigned and what's being constant. So for something that's going to be consistent, use const, right? If you're going to change it, use let. This is the biggest pet peeve of mine. Right now, we're trying to hire a developer, and every time I get their code review in and they misuse these, I freak out, and most of the time, I don't give them a vote for a job. Because if you don't know the difference in this, either means you're sloppy, you're lazy, or you're incompetent. Because it's the easiest thing. And I'll tell you the rule. Always use const until you get that error. Okay? Simple. Don't even use let. I 100% guarantee you, most of the time, you're not going to use let. And when you do need let, JavaScript will tell you. Okay? I see. And ask Stephanie. I graded hers. I will shame you if you use let wrong. I am going to will it out of you like a toddler. I don't know why everybody wants to use let. Maybe it's because like a cooler word. I'm not sure. But your default, I've seen it 1,000 times, is to use let. No let. Const. Const, const, const. Okay? Kind of like everything's truthy until it's falsy. Everything's const until it's we need to reassign. Okay? This is why you don't want to use let. So whenever you have a variable that is able to be reassigned, does anybody know why this is bad? Or why you don't want to throw it all over the place? If you don't need to? Yeah.
Because you might accidentally reassign a reader. So
You could, right? Another developer 3,000 lines down doesn't know and just reassigns it. Cool, that's a great reason. Anytime a variable can be reassigned, you're opening up scope. We'll talk about scope a little next class, but basically when you're doing that, what you're saying is I need memory to store this to be able to be reassigned. If you need more scope, that means more memory. And on your client side, somebody who's coming to your web page, slower website. Who loves to go to a website and see lots of things loading? No one, right? That's actually the #1 cause of bounce rate. Things aren't loaded on the page. Things take forever to load on the page. You do this maybe 3 or 4 times, right? Is it going to be the end of the world? No. But you do it application-wide, bad. Huge slowdowns. So you don't want to burn your memory on things like let when you can use const, and that's why ES6 designed it. So in your code that you submit, no more var, first of all. Var, gone. Bad. Yuck. Hate. Yeah, this bad. Like, ugh, no. Gross. Let, just don't use it until you need it, okay? Save it. And you'll need it sometimes, right? Sometimes you could say, like, I really do need to reassign that value. And you'll have it. But it's just best practice, just start with const until JavaScript yells at you. And it'll yell at you, right? It'll tell you, can't reassign. Change it to let, okay? So your first assignment, you're not gonna see any of these. In fact, you don't even need let in your first assignment, so you won't even need it. So just forget about it and just use const, okay? Okay, perfect. And that's my spiel. I also have failed my boss's code reviews for improper use of let. So it's not just you I'm strict on. It's everyone. Okay. So if-else statements, const, let, all the fun stuff. I'll very quickly go over function syntax. I'm not super concerned about function syntax right at this moment. You'll need it for some of your problems, but we might as well just touch it. Okay, function syntax. How do I write a function? What do I have to do? Function, perfect. Then what? Okay, parentheses, and then what? Curly brackets? Yeah, I got what you're saying. Okay, and so this actually technically is right, but there's one thing that I need to make it more specific. And I name it, right? I'm big about function names. Make function names what you intend to do with that function. So like for this function, I would say like sum two numbers. It's traditional to do camel case on functions, right? So first letter of the first word is lowercase, but then every first letter of subsequent words are uppercase. So it looks like this. Okay, sum two numbers. What goes in the parentheses? What'd you say? Yeah, perfect. Parameters, things that the function's expecting, right? Data that you're passing through. A lot of times, how many have you guys have seen like X and Y, right? I hate that because as a developer, if you come back to your code like 6 months later, or you have a friend look at this, they're like, what is X and Y? Be descriptive with these. You can name them whatever you want. I can name them cheese and potatoes if I want. Be descriptive. If you don't know what they are going to be, go back to their data types. What are you expecting? Maybe num1, num2, right? X and Y doesn't help anybody out, but num1, num2, you would say like, oh, I'm expecting 2 numbers to come in. Okay. So I'm expecting those 2 things. What does a function do? Why is it? Who remembers what a function can do? Why do we use them? Yeah. Right, they're reusable, right? So I could pass in any 2 numbers, and here I want to sum them. And a function's main purpose, if we're going to boil it down, is to do what? Who knows? It's a magic word. It starts with the letter R. Return. Functions' shining example in JavaScript is it can return something, right? Here, in this case, I probably want to return the sum of my 2 numbers that I passed in, right? And you can just do it. Num1 plus num2. I'm going to return the sum of those 2 numbers. Okay, now I have it. How do I get it to run? How do I whip this bad boy up? How do I do that?
Some name of the function with passing the numbers.
Yep, just like they're written. Perfect. Right in those parentheses, so I do like 4 and 6. Right. Repel it might be a little. Okay, that worked. So my return is 10. Yes?
You're not using a lot of semicolons. Are we supposed to be using semicolons?
Sure. Sorry. I'm not a huge stickler about that. Especially like one-line functions. Like this is one line. Like a semicolon, if I had another line, like if I did like, you know, like. Yeah, no, I mean, I would say like one-line functions, like where you just return something in one line, you don't really need a semicolon. If you have things underneath that line, then you want to do semicolon just to make sure JavaScript-wise. But is it going to hurt anything to throw a semicolon there? No, just not necessary. Okay, great. So we define the function. Remember, you always have to call the function, right? Okay. And the nice thing about the function is I could run this function a million times with crazy different numbers, and my return, right, is always going to return whatever my first number is plus whatever my second number is. Nice thing about the function. In JavaScript, we always want to wrap things in function. We'll go over functional programming a little later, but we want to be able to do things over and over again and call them again and again and be able to use these programs. That's the point of JavaScript. Yes?
Is there an advantage of using the function or the constant, the new constant one in ES6? Yeah.
Are you talking about function syntax?
Yeah, I don't know, where you define a function, I don't know what it's called, but where you define a function like const equals parentheses error.
Yes. You're getting ahead of me.
Okay.
There is ES6 function syntax. We will go over that next class, I promise. For right now, you can just do regular function syntax. If you want to do ES6 function syntax, go for it. Yes?
The green font on the right,
Uh-huh.
that's stuff that's not going to appear in the console, but is running.
On 22? Which line?
The 10 on the right.
Oh, this is going to be, basically repel it is returning the return of the first function being run. Repel is a little sensitive. If you guys are using it, it'll only print out the first like function return. If you want to see the return of every function that you're running, wrap them in a console log. So if I wanted to see the return of this function, I'd do console log. Same for this guy. now I could see the return of both of my functions. This is just a repel it thing. You don't really have to worry about that. I would just, if you want to see the return of the function, just wrap it in a const log for now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Awesome. So, here's what we're going to do. So we have your first project. Now, for your first project, what I want you guys to do is you're going to open up a Repel-It, and it's just repl.it. When you create a new one, I want you guys to search for ES6, not a basic JavaScript, just to be safe. And in class today, what you're going to do is Stephanie's going to pair you up in just a second. But what you're going to do is, these are the first 4 problems that you have for your project. I want you and your partner to plan out the methods that you are going to use for these. If you want to play around in JavaScript, you can. Do I want you to write the code for this? No. I want you to research some methods and figure it out. Here is a hint that I will give you. Big part of JavaScript is breaking down word problems into JavaScript, right? We have some word problems, we need to write this into a program. If we break up this sentence into its smallest parts, write a JavaScript program. What does that mean? What should that mean to you guys? What's a JavaScript program? Function, right. Anytime you see program, I want you to think function, okay? So I don't want you to just console log a date and time. I want you to write a JavaScript program that you could run again and again and again that will display the current date and time. So with you and your partner, now that you guys know that you have to write 4 functions, actually you need to write 8 functions total, but I want you to concentrate on these 4. I want you guys to figure out what's the JavaScript method you're going to use to show the date and time. What's the JavaScript method you're going to use in your function to convert a number to a string, etc., etc. Okay? Then each pair, I might pick like half of you guys to show the methods that you're going to use. Okay? Then when you go home, I want you to do the same thing for the rest of the 8. I want you to research the methods you're going to use first. You already know you're going to write a function. We went over function syntax. All that's left is figure out what method. Then all you got to do, put them together, right? Use those methods, put them together, and test them. What I would do for this is do it in Repel-It for now, then watch my then watch my Git video of how to make a pull request. You'll just copy and paste it into your datatypes.js folder. And that'll be on the video, but I would just play with this and Repel-It for now. Okay? Okay, so today in class, methods for these first 4. When you go home, do the methods for these and then write them. Cool? In Repel-It and in your JavaScript actual files, to write comments, I suggest that you actually write your methods in comments here. That way you're not like flipping back and forth. It's 2 forward slashes would make a comment. The other thing you can do is if you shift command / you could do a multi-line comment. So I could do something like, you could do multi-line if you want. Or you could just do 2 forward slashes. And I'd write your plan here. Like, this is a method I would use to show for date and time. Okay? Anybody have any questions? Yes?
Is there a hotkey for that?
I don't know. Google it. I would just look up multi-line comment. It should be the same for Repel-It, actually.
It's Control-Shift/.
Okay. Control-Shift/. There you go. Okay. I'll leave the instructions on the board. Steph, you want to call out partners?
Yeah. Since you guys probably don't know each other that well yet, when I called first to raise your hand and meet each other, so it's not after. Almira, and go ahead and put your name, tell me. Almira and Chris. Leslie and Dane. Yeah, did everyone get that?
Oh.
Did someone not partner with the people that were signed in?
Quick thing. Thank you so much for reminding me. The Austin Coding Academy repellents, don't do them. They're like broken. I don't make them. Sorry if you had a headache about that. I meant to send out an email.
Yeah, those will confuse you.
Those will confuse you. Don't do them. I'm sorry, they're in the textbook. I did not put them in there. I don't write them. Don't do them. Don't worry about them. Okay? All right. Meet with your partners. Let's go. Let's say we meet here at like 8:30ish. We'll meet back. You guys are more than welcome to spread out wherever.